All right, welcome everyone. We have a guest. It is digBiz episode 23, and we have a guest, Ian Ray from 365 Cannabis, sales engineer extraordinaire, and he has new shoes. Chris has no shoes, and we are going to talk about. We're going there.
It's
We're going to talk
gross to wear shoes in the house. That's all I'm saying.
That's why I didn't have any on, but it was getting bad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I have my house shoes on, so it's all right.
Oh, the house shoes. Aren't we fancy? We're going to talk about the T word, people. We're going there. Yeah, we'll get our Zen on. We're going to talk about the T word, and in this case, the T means tariffs. And for those who are watching, who know a little bit about the cannabis industry or industries, depending on how you look at it, the thought may come to mind that, well, all of this is produced locally, so tariffs don't impact you. But that's not exactly true. It's a bit true, but it's not exactly true. And there are unknowns that come with all of this. So we are going to throw this open to you both. Where do tariffs affect cannabis producers and wholesalers, and where do they not? And what kind of roller coaster do producers find themselves in these days?
So far, the customers that I am talking to that have cartridges, papers, cones, or some packaging in some form of transit are unhappy because, there are only a couple of places that cartridges come from. There are only a couple of companies that people still want to work with. They are all manufacturing in China. And anything that was on the water last week is now double plus. So it's not that the price of the cartridge itself is prohibitive, but if you have a quarter or 2 quarters worth of your hardware on the water, your bill just went from 30K to 75K. And people's cash flow is not that fluid. So there's some pain.
So what happens in this situation? Because I'm asking because I actually don't know. It's on the water. It was 35K as of your sales order. It's going to show up and it's going to be 70K. What happens? You just get a bill and it's tough beans. If you don't pay that, you don't get it.
I think you pay that bill before you take your merchandise. Yeah. That's what the tariff is. The importer pays it in order to get their boxes off the boat.
Yeah. So otherwise, it's sitting on the boat or the dock or wherever it sits in that import process. And if you don't pay the nice bill, it does not leave that wherever that is.
Correct.
And that's how imports work in general. There's always somebody trying to take more money off an import. Like even after you get it in, there'll be, the warehouse that has it, they'll charge you to release it out of their possessions. There's fees everywhere with that.
Yeah. The difference is these fees have skyrocketed. So what does it do for so to your scenario, Chris? So what does it do for all this hardware and these papers? And so do they trying to eat it, but you can't eat that kind of increase?
I honestly I don't know. I don't know what you do. You burn the cash flow that you have, I guess, but this is the raw material for your business. A customer of mine that the 3 of us have actually worked with, their business is cartridges. And I don't think they've got $35,000 extra that they were just sitting around. Maybe they've got it one time, but if they don't buy and get these cartridges, they're not squeezing oil into people's hands and letting them take it home. This is what they sell. I don't know what they do. if they do not have the delivery vehicle or the delivery device for the product that they manufacture, what is their business? I don't know. It's
I mean, Ian, you talk
it's
to
different. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, Ian, you talk to these guys all the time. I mean, they really don't like they have to throw that costing into their system, and they turn that around. And as I think that everyone knows, by now, that $100 item is going to turn into a 200 and some odd dollar item.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far with the cartridges. That's a very small percentage of the overall cost of goods manufactured that they have. So, I mean, it will get passed on as maybe 4 times the price of the increase to the end consumer, but it's not going to double the price. I mean, you're not going to see a $20 cartridge be 40 or a 50 be 100 or anything like that.
No, it's not going to be like shoes or cars where something that was $100 is now $200. The price of the cartridge as a raw material input for a finished good is relatively small, like Ian was just saying. It is the cost of stocking your raw material shelves so you can manufacture that is going to put that line item completely out of reach for a minute. And when you experience that sort of hiccup in your manufacturing process, I mean, like, this is why people buy ERP. So they don't run out of the things that they need to have to produce their product, right? And this just put an incredibly high barrier up for a lot of people to really, like, one of the most, if not like an equally crucial component to a vaporizer cartridge. You've got the oil and you've got the cartridge. It's like, what do you do if you can't get trim for your tubes? You can't make oil. You can have all the cartridges. It's the same thing. Like, I don't know what these people are supposed to do with their businesses.
So you're hitting on a topic ultimately that I wanted to get to, which is these inputs. We're not going to get, we're not into the weeds of tariffs. They are what they are, and they are increasing the inputs. With a fully functioning ERP, e-commerce integrated platform, what's the power that businesses have, manufacturers, producers, wholesalers, in using that to at least mitigate and analyze what's going on and what they can do about it? So, I mean, at the very least, if that $35 turns into $70,000, and Ian, to your point, these are, one bit of an input of a series of things. What should they be doing? At least analyzing this. They should be running scenarios. Analyzing potential alternatives, if there are any alternatives, of where they could source other inputs. Paper. Maybe they can't get batteries from somewhere else, but they could get paper from somewhere else.
Yeah, everything you described. I mean, it's the main benefit is to the human mind. It's like Kahneman described that there's the system 1 and then there's system 2 thinking. If you're using system 1, you're afraid, you're unsure, or you're overconfident. Any of those type of automatic intuitive thoughts, versus system 2 is the deeper analytical capability of the human mind. You can't exploit that system 2 thinking if you don't have the data in front of you. If you can't manipulate it, if you can't see where it goes, that what analysis are you doing? You're just stuck in this reactionary intuitive mode. So that's the advantage.
So diving in, and then Chris, I know you have a thought here. So diving in practical terms, Ian, I know you sort of gave the idea of the thinking. In practical terms, what you're basically saying is just kind of to our scenario. I'm stuck in this $35,000 versus $70,000 scenario. I need to figure something out what to do about it. So what does that look like? So they're going to their ERP and they're trying to figure out next steps.
I mean, with the ERP, you can simulate the entire process. You can create a copy of your company, pretend like everything costs 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as much, run through it. Well, what's your cost of good manufactured? It tells you. It's not opening up a spreadsheet and figuring out every different thing and how that would affect it. It just runs through it and tells you exactly.
Hmm.
Our business is doing
yeah,
that?
they must be.
They should
right?
be.
Cross your fingers.
They should have been doing that all along.
They should have been using that superpower that Ian just described. Like, that's when it comes down to it, like that's what you should be doing with your ERP, like late at night, is gaming out scenarios, trying to figure out, like trying to look down range and say like, okay, I have no idea what is going to happen, but I'm going to be prepared for this. Here is like when I ran my business, I would wake up in the middle of the night. I would just sit bolt upright in the middle of the night with some sort of like, what if the power goes out? What if I can't get this nutrient? What if somebody doesn't show up from work? And you have contingency plans, right? That's the foundation of entrepreneurship, right? Is like, be prepared for the contingencies. That's what an ER, like, Ian, that's something we should talk about when we are on demos. Like, that is actually a very nice, like, pinpoint value proposition. Is here is a way to plan for contingencies. Here is a way to actually game out, what if this does happen? It's not going to, but I can, like Ian just said, create a company, and in this universe, in the multiverse, this happened, and now I can see if my business survives.
But we're currently in the multiverse.
It's the worst timeline.
And we're in timeline 999. And we happen to be in that Earth, that multiverse. And so everything you just said, Chris, they not only should they already have been doing that, but as we're saying, they should be doing, if they're not doing it, they then start yesterday. And if you are doing it, do it more. And sit down with your team, whoever is the buyer or the researcher, if you're not that person, and look at these options. And as you said, in some cases you may not have many options, but it's all about what control can you exercise. And then, Ian, exactly like you said, set out those scenarios where you are exercising control over. Maybe it's just as simple as paper, but right now, if you can control one thing that you source differently, try paper, and then you can go from there. I can see the looks of exasperation a little bit on your faces because it's a hard one.
Yeah, paper's not the way to go.
Paper's not the way to go.
It's the problem with trying to roll up costs if you have a multi-step process using paper or spreadsheets or whatever. I mean, it's
No. I didn't mean writing it down paper. I meant paper. Is like where you're sourcing paper.
Use like rolling paper.
Paper. Yeah, rolling paper. Yeah,
and that's problematic too, because if paper's not so simple, because you have the compliance requirements of various states, and a lot of them want you to test that paper in with the rest of your product. So you have an established vendor who's producing paper that doesn't test positive for whatever chemicals that are being tested for. And now you try to switch suppliers. That's a huge risk. Right. That's not a simple, we're just going to switch to somebody else. It's like you've already been burned from trying to use different paper that didn't pass. So
right.
It's probably the worst one, actually.
That's just like, that's just the thing though. When you throw a rock and introduce all kinds of these uncertainties, like this change in price, right? This is the first change in what is inevitably going to be a series of alternate universes, right? Because Ian, you just hit on something. Like, maybe there is somebody in the US that people can buy cartridges from. Maybe there is. Are they ceramic? Do they use rubber gaskets? Are they washed in something? Like, you don't know. But in this moment of like true panic and uncertainty, and you're grasping and reaching for straws, right? You've got one move to make. Yes, I can buy 100,000 carts from somebody in Modesto. Yes, go ahead and push the button. But you don't know what they are. And you create all kinds of strange downstream effects that you cannot predict. Right? It's
the upside of this is that April 2020 created a lot of these domestic cart manufacturing type companies. That shock, where not that it costs more, but that it didn't exist, that created U.S. domestic companies that can serve that. Do people use them, or do they have relationships with them now? Could be problematic.
And I do also, just based on what you just said, Ian, want to like recognize that tariffs are supposed to make people uncomfortable, right? They're going to cut off an avenue of behavior to encourage a different kind of behavior, because theoretically we want more cartridge manufacturers in the US, right? We want our kids to be putting in tiny screws, right? That's what the Commerce Secretary says, right? 100 jobs for every child with tiny fingers. So like, is it a net positive later on if there are a bunch of domestic cartridge manufacturers? If somebody spins up a cone factory, like if that guy who is just like constantly tweaking on Insta as he like rolls up cones, like, is that better? I don't know, but there are businesses that are going to fail now because of all this.
And this is why we're talking. We want the people who are watching us, hopefully, to not fail. And we're trying to provide, a little bit of incentive and initiative and support for them to at least have a starting place to not be that failure, if we can at all be a help to that. But ultimately, we're talking about uncertainty, right? Ian, you said that, but going back to 2020. Right, 2020 was obviously not tariffs; it was just simply supply chain disruption and a kick in the head. And this is one of the biggest and strangest uncertainties that we have. But ultimately, we are talking about uncertainties of what happens to your environment and what can you do about it when and especially as it compares to your competitors. We have a number of, we talk about this, offline. We've got a number of businesses that have kind of settled on models that they can't control, and control 100% control. No one has 100% control, but when your inputs change and you do not have control of certain elements of your platform. Now I'm kind of diving into the platform for a minute. What can you do? Like, what do you do? What do you need to be able to do to control, as much of your production, but also your production and your means of distribution and sales in a way that that gives you at least a little bit more control over what you're doing. And we're talking about things like fees. We're talking, of course, tariffs are fees, tariffs are taxes, but now we're also talking about other ancillary fees that get added to your distribution and whatnot. And you guys brought this up, which is marketplaces that have decided that they want to kind of take a transaction fee of a sort. And you had no idea that this was happening until it was.
There are a lot of Canatech companies that based their future, which is now, on the ability to take and process payments. There are a couple of very prominent POS companies that, like, their whole business model was to give away the software and even include hardware in it, because someday they were going to get a fraction of a penny for every dollar spent. That has not happened. They are millions of dollars of leveraged debt, underwater. They have huge outstanding invoices from hardware companies that are just like, hey, where's that 22 million bucks you guys were gonna were going to send us. And safe banking is nowhere close, right? These fees are not going to happen. These fees are not going to show up in their bottom lines. And so a lot of these Canatech companies are now saying like, okay, how are we going to get to this, 10 times revenue valuation that we raised on? Like, how are we going to get there? Monopoly has allowed one, I mean, like, let's just say it. LeafLink, you fumbled this bag so hard. They introduced over the week this like 0.85% fee. Ian and I talked to 3 people last week who now are like, yeah, we've got to use them until we don't. I have a ticket created right here for my dev team because we have been asked to create a relationship and an API structure for a different vendor, because anybody who was on LeafLink last week, 100% of their day today is figuring out how they are going to get off of LeafLink. There might not be a way, but they're trying.
The risk I see is, which one of these vendors do you actually trust? It's like Uber came out and they had weird fees they started doing. Oh, but then Lyft came out and they did the same thing. All of these companies that come out with the supposedly good deal, where they give you a deal on something, you're the product there. It's not that if they were to charge upfront for what they could reasonably make money on, then they would scale slowly. These venture capitalists, they don't like that slow scale, because 9 out of 10 of their investments are going to go broke. They want the big exit. So these companies try to go, well, we'll give you the good deal now, and then later we're going to shift it over to vendors and kind of to the consumers, because they're already hooked. And then later, vendors now are going to start charging them whatever percentage fees on top of everything. And then just fire all your support staff, and then you have the perfect SaaS company. It's awesome. A model.
And Chris, we talked about this before. I mean, ultimately, what we're all saying is this is a leveraged play that was supposed to take X number of years to get to a certain level based on certain revenue streams that either haven't panned out as they hoped, or they didn't pan out at all, and or the scale didn't pan out because they expected to get some enormous market share, and the list goes on. All this, the 98% of the population is going to smoke weed by next April, and we're going to own 83% of that market, and so on, and that's not going to happen. And you made a comment about bank and payment services. For people who don't know, even in the B2C world, where payment service, actually no, B2B or B2C world, there are some merchant companies that will take on cannabis product, or at least non-THC cannabis product. They will take it on, but it's very limited. And given the U.S. Governance model, legal model, it's not guaranteed that will be forever. I mean, it is looking a promise. There are a few, and we actually have a relationship with a couple of them. But most of them, if you call them and you explicitly say, I am a cannabis business of some kind, there's a very good chance of they'll say, nope, don't do that. We don't do that. And they won't. And in some cases, if you sort of say that you have a cannabis business and you kind of like let it slide, and then they find out 6 months later, then there are many stories where your account just stops. And then sometimes they don't even tell you that it stops. It just stops working. And then you call them up and they say, oh, we found out. And you are in breach of policy section whatever. So anyway, this is where we're sort of layering uncertainty on uncertainty, but ultimately it comes down to control, as we've been saying. Some of these industry plays where these platforms have bet a sizable chunk of their farm on a revenue model that hasn't played out, and then the fee comes in, and that fee is not It's not nothing. 0.85%. It may sound like nothing, but 0.85%. What does that do for some of these guys?
I wouldn't discount the scenario where the per transaction fee was always planned with a company that implements it. It could have been in the original pitch deck that they used to get the funding, that eventually we're going to capture the market to the point where now we can exploit those individual transactions.
A monopolistic forecast to say, once we've got you all in this trick bag, we're going to close it up and shake it up and do what you want in there, crickets, but we got you.
And bake in the churn that comes from it, and hope that it's only 4 phone calls, and then only another phone calls, and on, and hope that that's not a big deal. Is that what you think, Ian?
I don't know. I just it's the same thing. Just go ahead, Ian. Sorry.
I just thinking I think it's being generous to say, oh, it was a failed model and now they have to do this. That's assuming that it wasn't the original plan to get to the point of doing this. I mean, why was the subscription low for a lot of these companies in the first place? If they all, was their plan just to lose money, just indefinitely lose money?
No,
that can't be the real plan.
But it was what you said earlier, Ian, that all of these companies have marijuana fact books and quarterly product reports and consumer behavior reports that they sell. They've got a quarterly one and then an annual one. That's the rule, right? If it's free, you're the product. The cannabis industry data has always been the product, but I mean, lamenting capitalism, when is enough enough?
Well, I think this is Ian's point, though. I think this is Ian's point is that, at some point in time he figures that this is baked in, and it may sound a bit cynical, but it is capitalism 101. Is to get to a point to figure out how you can get more revenue out of whatever you're doing, and either you do that by being more efficient, or you do that by raising your rates, or if you have a market that will allow it, and is the market ready to allow this? I mean, it sounds like we're thinking, no, the market's like nuts to this, but maybe we're wrong.
Depends.
But it's the same reaction. Sorry, Ian, go ahead. I'm a terrible interrupter.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's if you look at other SaaS companies who've done the same thing. I mean, they plan it. They know that eventually they're going to extract value from the lowest common denominator, which is each transaction that occurs. And they do it, and they continue to exist. It's, is it necessarily a bad idea if that's the plan all along?
I don't know, because it's the same thing about tariffs, right? Everybody is the anti-tariff crowd maintain that, okay, great, you're going to rake in all this money. It is a short-term sugar high that you are getting, because everybody that was trading with the US is doing now is trying to figure out who else they're going to trade with. Yeah, you've got them now, but all of their energy now is going to be spent trying to find an alternative, because you have basically grabbed them and shook them and said, what are you going to do about it? It creates ill will. That also gets baked psychologically into the business relationship. You create a lunch where everybody is supposed to be eating, where, yeah, I'm eating off your plate until I just say, yeah, you know what? I'm not coming to this lunch anymore. See ya. Isn't that a bigger long-term risk than the short-term gain would be? I don't know. I'm not an economist, but the people that you do business with, you want them to be, transactions to be mutually beneficial, don't you?
And I
it's
think
only
that's the
about
era that
not.
we live in. Was that Ian?
Not reducing demand, below the point that you're making more money with your reduction of demand. If you have some churn, that's okay. If you're talking about enough additional revenue for the same effort, I mean, it's like Uber. It's like,
Yeah.
do people start taking cabs just because the prices are higher? I mean, half the time I'll go to Las Vegas and the cabs are cheaper than Uber, but people are still taking Uber.
I have stopped taking Uber from Cincinnati Airport home. The cabs are cheaper. And once I found that out, I was like, oh, great.
So this is good, though. This is a good analogy, because what's the difference between a cab and an Uber? Basically nothing. There's
The
basically
cab
no
driver
difference.
knows where they're going.
Okay. I would say in some situations that's also debatable, but
I don't have to listen to Linkin Park on the way home. That's a key difference.
There must be a geographic thing. Okay. But fundamentally, okay, there may be a minor difference between the local Uber driver and the semi-local cab driver because of where it is that they live and so on. But fundamentally, the value proposition is really not a lot different. You get into the back of a vehicle, you get out, and you're where you intended on being, and you have paid, some price that may or may not be similar. It sounds like the prices are sort of flattening out in the cab versus Uber world. In our platform discussions, SaaS versus application instance services versus tailored systems and so forth, the value propositions are fundamentally quite different. And people have sat in this marketplace world and without the 0.85% fee. And they've sat there because it was, as we've described it, it was the thing that was available in the moment, and it was the only thing that could get them there right then and there, however many years ago that was. And doing so in a website, in a traditional website, was it was not going to provide any more value in the moment, because a straight up website was going to be doing effectively the same thing but kind of less, because it's your own website. It's not cannabis specific. You don't have a lot of the tools available to you, and you're not exposed in any way to your customers and your deep inventory supply chain model in any meaningful way. So you were not getting any additional value proposition out of a traditional website in that moment, as opposed to the marketplace. So in that way, the marketplace did provide a fair bit of value at a pretty decent price point at the time. Now that price point is changing. You back to the control bit and the uncertainty. You don't have control over that. They're doing whatever they're doing. But now the landscape is different, where the ERP e-commerce, self promotion moment here for this, the supply chain ERP integration with e-commerce is now available. It's there, it's costed out, and it is also environment specific. So you own it in a sense. You own it. It's yours to control. And this value proposition is now something that you didn't have before. And how you want to deal with transactions, how you want to deal with merchant companies, how you want to deal with banks if they are going to play ball, is largely yours. So in a manner of speaking, we're talking about an ERP commerce integrated world that is transplanting what you would have tried to do 3, 4, 5 years ago, but was probably too expensive to do it on your own, unless you were a big enterprise. So now you have control that you didn't have.
I'm just hoping these companies charge too much. Break it. Charge 8%. Like, go for it. Try to make as much money as you can. We'll still be charging the same price because we're charging for a subscription to a service that has lower friction really to switch services. They can do what they want with it. They can charge per transaction. They can, bankrupt their company trying to do it, create all the ill will. I hope they do it. I hope all of them do it.
Me too.
Yeah. No, but this is actually my point, right? So now this is where the value proposition conversation comes in, to say, why you're sitting in that cab and you're looking at the Uber driver, and you're thinking, why am I doing this? That one's easy, but because the value proposition is similar. But if you're sitting in the marketplace, and now you're looking over at a fully integrated platform that allows you to run costing, that allows you to make real-time changes to your client base, to your customer base, to your cost, to your lot awareness, to how your lots are purchased or automated, all the stuff that is fully integrated. So now you're looking across at that other platform and you're saying, why am I doing this again? And our producers at this place now, as you said, Chris, you're getting the phone calls. Are they kind of saying, I've had it, the value proposition, my experience over here with what I can do, whether it's from 365 Cannabis out to LeafLink or to the marketplace, and what I can't do, because that's also a thing, and now my price is going up, am I getting anything out of this, or am I getting enough out of this versus what my competitors are able to do?
Yeah. And like, especially in this era of where it feels like the 1,001st, second and third cuts are now coming. Like, it's what we were saying before. Like, the cartridge that you are purchasing going up by 12 cents, like, that's not going to make a gigantic difference, right? But compliance company also going to tack on their little bit. And now your online wholesale platform, they're going to just hit you 0.85%. Who cares about 0.85%? But it is these tiny little grains of sand. Like, eventually that last straw does break the camel's back, right? I mean, not to be too on the nose about it, but like, if you are trying to do this on a spreadsheet, keep track of all of the 1,000 cuts that are coming at you. Like, that's what ERP is for, friends. That's what ERP is for. Keep track of the 1,000 cuts that are coming your way. Step into Ian's alternate universe with the sandbox and like game all this stuff out. You gotta be prepared for all of the contingencies. That's what I want for all of my friends in the industry. That's what I want for all my customers, is like to not get caught flat-footed about all of this, to have a plan, to be able to see other avenues and universes where you do succeed, where you can hold all the straws.
And we've had this exact scenario. I'm using that word deliberately, just recently with a mutual business, where their model was tied to a marketplace, and because the marketplace couldn't actually work with their full business, their proper product model, including lots and so forth, they had this hugely elaborate naming convention and product positioning, so that all of their testing numbers were becoming de facto products. And for anyone who doesn't know, who's watching, these testing numbers, they're not products. They're just simply a test that was done on a product that said, you test, and this is the specification that came out, and the all of the THCs and so forth, CBDs, and it all it all played out like this, and therefore here's your testing number. And if you do it again next month, then you can use the same testing number. And if it doesn't come up the same way, then you have to get another testing number. And so it played out that these testing numbers, because they had no other choice, because the marketplace forced them to do it, they ended up thinking in their mind that this testing number was a product. And in Ian's world, that's just a head blow up kind of a thing, because Ian in the data team would look and go, "What are you doing? You can't base a business on a test being a product and have it go through your entire costing model and etc. It's not the way to do it." But the marketplace retroactively forced them to do this, and the TLDR in all of this is that our heads blew up in looking at this, not because we thought they were dumb people. They did what they had to do. They had no choice. But once we spun it around in the wheel for a while, and we came down to the fundamental, primary source of truth on this. Oh, we've lost Chris. Hopefully, he'll be back. Um, it came around that they changed their model. There he is. And he changed their model, and now everything makes sense. And their entire team, the light has gone on. And so coming back to the value proposition thing again is now the value proposition of having to work with this marketplace model that could not accommodate the real data. Now they're flipped over to, oh, now we understand how our production, costing, scenario building, and ultimately product distribution and marketing uh, makes sense. So that literally we're having calls with them where the warehouse and distribution product experts at their level are talking to the marketing people, and they're saying, here's the product, and inside the product here's the lot, and here's that number, here's our testing number. And they're all having nice educated common conversations where it all makes perfectly good sense. And by the time they're done, they will also not be really experiencing these fees, at least not much, because they are moving to a model that they can control. That's my
It was
story.
unnecessary in low competition, immature cannabis markets. It still is. Whatever the batch is, you sell the batch that you want your customers to buy. You don't offer them everything. Versus a mature, competitive cannabis market, can't do that. Certain people are going to want certain specs. You're going to have the people who want the lower spec. You're going to have people who want the higher spec. So you have to disclose and you have to sell it as a different product for a different price. Of course, it's a different batch. It's not a different product, but it's going to cost a different amount.
Right. And being able to control that without breaking open your data model, so that to your point, if you've got if you've got a flower that is a premium flower, and you have a flower that is aging out, and you want to get rid of that, they're not two different products. Fundamentally, they are the same product. And being forced by this marketplace data model fracturing, you're now splitting this up. It's the same product, but you're splitting it up so that you have to represent it as though they're different products. That may sound simple if you're an e-commerce person, just keyboarding out at the e-commerce level. Sure, make another SKU, who cares? But go all the way back to the warehouse and to the production team, that blows their brains because they know it's the same product. It started out that way. And you can't continue to do business at scale this way.
Ian and I come across all kinds of wacky things like this that companies do because that's the way that the software makes them do it. They don't know that there is a better way or even a standard manufacturing process that has been in place for decades around what they are doing because Canatech software built usually to solve one problem, and then any other functionality that is in that platform has been added on piecemeal, not because there is a holistic process or guiding principle around solving problems. It's we solved this problem, it was great, and now our customer has this problem over here and this problem over here and this problem over here. And it's just this like weird constellation of fixes without a through line to solving a problem.
So we've been going for a little bit. So businesses, cannabis businesses, they need to be, we're ultimately saying they've got control, or at least they've got the ability to exercise some level of control through ERP costing, through control, as we've just been saying now, of of batches or lots, and being able to sub segment properly within their data structure, just to say that product X has different iterations in their batches and lots that they can control, whether they're old, aging out, or they're their top quality product. They have sourcing. We've talked about what tariffs are doing to that. What's the key takeaway for these guys? These are, as everyone said, these are uncertain times, but people are going to succeed. This market's not going away. People are going to succeed. Who paint a picture of these players that are in some of these scenarios? Who are the ones that are going to come out on top? We already know
Ian,
some of them. We can see they're making the steps. Who are they?
what do you think, Ian?
And the ones who can deal with their confirmation bias, the ones who can cope with availability of recent information, the ones who aren't anchored to a specific price for something, somebody who has the data and can analyze the data and come up with an idea to continue on. That's who will survive. That's who did extremely well. Well, frankly, last time we had something like this happen in COVID, the companies who could quickly adapt. And cannabis may be a bad example because cannabis grew in spite of there being supply chain issues during COVID, but not every industry was like that. So people who were able to adapt logically.
Yeah, but cannabis is also a little bit more mature now than it was then. Now, I wouldn't say that it's a fully mature industry because there's a lot, but the world in 2020, cannabis world, especially, I mean, throughout North America, because even in Canada, it was only 2 years old at the time. So then a lot has moved on, and there's been capital that's gone in to try things and overcapitalized and excited money, as I call it. So the world has moved on a little bit, but also, Ian, to your point, technology is also, even since then, technology has also advanced. The 365 platforms, already moved on a couple of major versions since then. SalStack has come in now and has adapted. So there are more tools in the toolbox for this crowd than there were then to play out your scenarios.
Well,
and it's being slowly revealed who is really a friendly vendor. Because I talked to a lot of people 2019, 2018, who considered the low-cost, money-losing companies to be the friendly vendor, that they understood the small cannabis company, but they never intended to understand them. They had probably the same intention that people who want to charge per transaction had, to roll with a money-losing price until they could lock in enough market share and then increase it.
Lots of early tech entrepreneurs had the Uber game plan in their heads. They had just scored really big with it. That's what I don't get. And last point, that's what I don't get about why people bought that I'm going to give you the software and give you the hardware. It's because I like you and I want your business to succeed. No. That's just not true. And everybody had this big healthy skepticism of big canna, the people who just their business plan was to lose money for 10 years, right? Let the OGs establish the market, do all the market research, build the market, and reach out to new customers, with all of these big sharks just lurking in the background, waiting for this. And then they would step up with economy of scale and just crush all the people and inherit the market that the OGs built, right? Why didn't people see that with the technology that was there too? With this predatory Uber model, it's right there. It's because they were all broed down with flat brims and J's, and like we're just broing it up. And shame on all of us. Shame on all of us. Not us, Ian, because we have been with true ERP, charging for what we provide as we go, right?
Does that make us old fashioned? Maybe. But it is capitalism 101. It's not VC 201, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
It's a
capitalism
different model.
101, it's a bit of what?
It's a different model. If you right away charge a reasonable price that you can support a business on, your growth is going to be slow. But you're going to say we started in 2017 and still be around in 2025. That's a big difference. That if we look at these companies that we used to compete with in 2018, 2019, they don't exist anymore. They were real friendly, but you can't buy it now.
No.
Are they 100% gone? Fold up shop, off you go?
I mean, quite a few of them are 100% gone. They had no real long-term interest in this industry.
No. And a lot of the ones that are left, even the ones that like remain viable, like have not advanced their product at all. Like they've tried to keep up with the new metric API endpoints, but the quality of what the actual product has not evolved, even as their customers have all gotten more sophisticated, which is where Ian and I always meet them. That I've got this for cultivation and a spreadsheet and a Mondays board to bridge cultivation to manufacturing, right? And then I've got a spreadsheet to go from manufacturing flow to inventory. And I've got a spreadsheet for costing, and I've got a spreadsheet for what's in WIP. And then I've got an e-commerce platform. So like when we talk about the Frankenstein tech stack, it is a bunch of building blocks with spreadsheet connective tissue all the way through. And it's just not manageable. Like maybe it works for a little while, but if your business continues to evolve and get more sophisticated, that becomes somebody's whole job. And there's too many points of failure.
We've got anyone who's worked with me knows that, and I did not coin this phrase, so I'm not taking ownership of it, but we've got a phrase that we adhere to, and Chris has heard this a lot, which is the primary source of truth. And when you're looking at everything within this supply chain from the product, but also within the ERP, right down to the inputs of that product, you have at various stages primary sources of truth to make that product happen. And so often that philosophy has either never existed or has fallen apart somewhere along the way. And our experience is that when you aren't keeping that focus in mind, you end up with a complete Frankenstein of where and how is this product coming to market, because you have lost touch with where those primary sources of truth are, either at the input level, the production level, the warehouse level. When you lose track of that, you no longer know where you control things. And when you lose track of that, you have a scenario that we talked about earlier, which is, which one's my product? I thought that was my product. No, that's a test. That's a metric test. That's not. No, but we call it a product. Yeah, but that's the one that gets into the market. No, that's not a product. That's just a test. And now no one knows what the primary source of truth is. And so now the production management team within the warehousing or or growth, they don't know how to talk to the marketing people because they don't even know what a product is. And so I'm on my soapbox a little bit about primary source of truth, but it's increasingly important, as you said, Chris. When you lose track of what your primary sources of truth are, you may be in that situation where part of your team doesn't even know what the product is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we solved all these economic problems today, gentlemen.
We've solved a lot of stuff. Ian, do you have any last thoughts? This has been the T word, the uncertainty word, the control word. What's the takeaway? I mean, this is the. I hate to sound like a Pollyanna, but there's a lot of opportunity in this conversation because we've sounded very pessimistic in a way, but I'm actually kind of optimistic if the right people are listening.
I mean, what you just said about the complexity of multiple systems, multiple definitions of what's a product. It's more system one versus system two thinking. At a glance, you have a system that appears to be simple, appears to be straightforward. And then you have another system that appears to be simple and appears to be straightforward. But if you were to analyze it and look at your aggregate complexity, of having all of these different systems have to process things, have different teams, have different definitions of what should be the same, then you have a more complex product. That your source of truth seems complex at a glance, but is actually more straightforward. That if you have one source of truth, you know this is skew one, this is skew two. There's not this aggregate complexity. You're not messing things up along the way. That it's one entire system. And it looks hard, but when you really start getting into it, it's easier.
I'm starving.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for this, for being Ian. Thank you for chiming in and for being here. I think it's great to have you. And for anyone who wants to book a demo with Ian through Chris, I don't know who do they call? They call Ian. They call Chris.
You want to talk to Ian? You got to go through me. Okay.
Oh, gatekeeper right there.
That's
Talk
right.
to Chris
We're going
first.
to talk to you before we have a demo. There's no way that we're just going to demo you. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
If now I've said this on this podcast many times. If you do want to be a smarter person, go to Ian's LinkedIn page because it is like everything that I have ever known about ERP I have learned there.
Right.
In all seriousness, like
flows
get
out,
smarter.
shining light right off of LinkedIn. Visit Ian Ray at LinkedIn. Visit Chris Guthrie on LinkedIn. Visit Jason Agouris or Tristan Group on LinkedIn. 365 Cannabis on LinkedIn. You'll get in touch with us one way or the other. I hope this has been, eye-opening for many. Hopefully optimistic for some. Maybe a little bit of a kick in the you-know-what for others. But uncertainty, there's opportunity there if you are willing to grab it. And we're seeing businesses do it, and they're doing it, and it is exciting for them. And for those that aren't doing it, not so much. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
As always, digBiz 23, and we're going to end it right there.